All right, welcome to the Daily Dirt with Dustin Diggs. We got a special podcast tonight. It's about mental health, and I got my friend Ashley here with Bree. And you did a really amazing podcast. I guess I saw about 4 months ago, maybe. You and a friend talked about mental health, and I listened to the whole thing, and I found it interesting because we have a lot of artists that come through the network and also tune into the show here. And I know a lot of people struggle with depression and anxiety, being an artist, and not even people that are just artists, but just people in general. So I kind of want to talk to you because you've had, with your discussion with mental health. So kind of just jump into it and talk about your kind of experiences with mental health.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that podcast, it was called A Hard Pill to Swallow, and it was based on addiction and recovery and mental health. It started with a friend that I knew in high school who actually lived in Mississippi, and somehow, some way, we both ended up in St. Louis, and he found me through Facebook looking for an artist, and then that grew, and he was super he was like an advocate for recovery because he was a recovering addict, still is, and it kind of just grew into something that eventually fell apart. Not on that podcast anymore, though I do think that they still are recording. It's just he found a different person that I guess he had better chemistry with. And who am I to try and stop progress? It's getting the word out. It doesn't matter who's there or who's saying it. It's just getting it out.
Yeah.
I have had my share of dealing with mental health and depression. A lot of it was because I was so far away from my home. I moved up here from Mississippi to work for someone, and through that experience, it was wonderful. But it was my first time kind of being in a city and being away from my family and kind of just out on my own as an adult. I was like 24 when I moved here, I think. 24, 25.
But before your age, 24, did you battle with depression? And because I'm very seasonal depression. Like when it gets cold in the wintertime, I notice my motivation's not as much as it is during the spring, summer. And I've had my battles with the alcoholism and things like that. So
I hear you there.
Yeah. Probably. I mean, when you're struggling as a child, things, don't always seem, it's not like this is depression. This is just, you being a sad kid if you don't get something that you want. Or I
feel like maybe I've had depression when I was in high school. Maybe Bri, if you want to jump in too, but I thought maybe it's just because I'm growing. It's my body's changing, so I was thinking that this is just normal.
Right, yeah. And I'm sure I probably felt the same way. I don't think it really hit me until I was an adult and I could rely on something to numb that pain. So as a child, I didn't really, or a young teenager, I didn't really experiment with drugs or alcohol. I was very straight-laced, very good girl. And so if I had an issue, I would just cry about it and move along.
Honestly, I feel like you were one of my big support systems when I was going through stuff when I was in high school, and I definitely struggled with depression, but at the time, I never went to therapy or had any kind of medication management or anything like that. No one talked to me about depression or things that could have been wrong with me. No one, it's easy to say that they didn't care enough to talk about it, but I mean, parents are people. So, but you were definitely there for me because as much stuff that I was going through, I still felt like I had a support system. But it didn't matter how much I had going on that was good for me. It still felt like I was drowning a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
Do you think there are signs that your parents could have seen though, that with your,
Well, I mean, I isolated myself a lot. I always, I was big into the computer and video games, but it was very much in my room. I didn't socialize. When I did go out, it was because, I was a snare drummer in band. And so I practiced a lot. But the only things I did was I was dedicated to school and my activities, and then I went home and I was by myself. So I didn't branch out very much in terms of trying to create new experiences or create new friendships or anything like that. So I just feel like if I were a parent, and maybe, I'm overthinking it, or, I have a different heart than some, I definitely have strong emotions about things and care a lot. So I feel like if I were a parent, I would be able to see, hey, they don't really do things for themselves. They don't, go out and try to actually find new people to be friends with, or establish real bonds, or maybe they lack self-confidence, or they just, I guess I summed it up when I said they just don't do much for themselves, because you're just trapped in your own head. And so you try to escape. And at that time, I didn't have the vices that I have today, which I did struggle with alcoholism. And I still drink, but I don't drink much liquor, just as a standard rule for myself. But back then it was just isolate yourself and play games or anything to distract yourself from your feelings. Yeah.
And that's when did you start, I guess out of high school, started using substance? When did that kind of come into your life?
So when I was about 16, I worked a lot in she was there for all of this. So
okay.
So I worked in the restaurant industry, and as a younger person in the restaurant industry, it's almost kind of like they encourage you to do bad things. So it's kind of like, oh, you've never had alcohol before? You just wait. Let me show you.
Never had a shot of this before?
Oh, man.
You need to try this, right?
Yeah.
take another one.
Yeah. I want to see what happens, guinea pig. So that's kind of how it was with me, and Ashley was alongside with me, and we would play Never Have I Ever that night.
The first time I got drunk, July 3rd, 2007.
Wow, that's very specific.
I will remember that day forever.
Because
that was at Philip's house
when
with David.
We threw up in the kitchen, in the sink, and on the floor, and we were slipping in it in our socks. That was, how old were we then?
I was 16.
Yeah,
I was about to.
So we
17.
We weren't able to buy alcohol at the time, but there are so many influences in your life when you get into, working and meeting new people that you don't, that you're not in school with and things like that, that they encourage you to do bad things, and then you latch onto it as oh, this is fun. This is a new way to kind of experience life, instead of just isolating myself and focusing in so much on oh, I feel bad, I'm gonna drown it out with video games. Now it's oh, well, this is a fun thing, so it can't necessarily be bad that I'm drowning myself with alcohol.
Right. But I'm with people, we're laughing.
I'm social now, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of took your being introverted and taking with alcohol made you more extrovert. Yeah.
Definitely. Exactly.
Oh, yeah. I'm a different person when I drink, for sure.
Yeah.
I had a little wine before I came on here.
Oh, okay. Well, don't be nervous to be on this show. Yeah. So then just kind of the partying, and then kind of how did that lead to, I guess, taking control? How did it start taking control?
So honestly, I'm a very organized person, so I kind of just found new ways to throw myself into other things like work. Whereas if I was more creative, like Ashley, I'm sure she threw herself into work, but it was more of a creative thing. So like more painting and more modeling and things like that to kind of like preoccupy her mind rather than to have to deal as much with like everyday life. I'm not trying to speak for you, but I'm just saying, like, if I were her, that would probably be what I did, because for me it was very much like I overloaded myself with work. Like I had 3 jobs, and so I don't think necessarily I found a way to fix it. I just found new vices, and that might be healthy vices or negative vices, and it's all about a matter of balance, I guess, because being a workaholic can produce positive results, but at the same time, like, you have to have a work-life balance. And it's only now, honestly, like years later, that I'm finally like, I should probably take lunch breaks. I should probably not work until midnight, and like my personal life should be better. It should be better enough that I want to establish fun and fulfilling things within my personal life that balance out as much as I work. So it's just a matter of recognizing what you do, recognizing the vices you have, and not holding on to them as tightly. But it doesn't mean that you have to rectify it immediately. It doesn't mean that you have to get rid of it. It just means you have to identify it, and then, like, from then on, you have to find a balance. Too much of anything is not very good. Right. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Okay. And so you touch base with being creative, because I feel when I'm creative, I'm creating stuff, either movies or whatever, the show or whatnot, that those vices they don't take over me with, like, because if I'm not doing anything in my life, I feel like it's easy for me to kind of fall back into, drinking all the time and not do anything. But like being creative is almost a kind of a release. Being able to release like something creative I create out to the world is almost kind of like a drug in itself for me.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that way, and it's almost like painting is a drug for me. It is one of my vices, because I notice that if I am going through a period where I am super distracted and I'm not able to paint, I know that sets me into a bad place. It like puts my mood in an entirely different place, until I actually have. And the even harder part is that when I'm not creating, it's putting me into a depression to where it makes me not want to create. So it's like it's a cycle that is vicious. And it's all about, like, okay, sit down, paint. You're going to feel better. It's going to be fine.
At that point, does it feel like a job, or does it still feel like a release?
When I make it solely about money, and when I need it to survive and pay the bills, it starts to feel like a job, and I lose motivation.
Right.
And it makes me depressed.
Yeah.
And so I recently got another job that would be able to offset some of my bills and give me new opportunities. And since doing that, I went through a period where I lost a little bit of steam on painting, and then when I finally got back into it, because I do have to do these paintings because people are paying me for them, when I got back into it and I like sat down in front of the canvas and I just dedicated some time to it, I felt better. And then and then you get to a point where you finish it and then the person loves it, and then that gives me an extreme boost
Right.
where like it's uncontrollable. It's almost as good as, you know, going out and getting drunk on a good day.
Yeah, right.
And so it's a difficult thing to identify because it definitely does feel like a job because I've because I've made it my job, but it is still a release because it's not like this is something that someone else can do.
Exactly.
It's not like I can, you know, say, hey, Bree, finish this painting for me because I gotta go. No one else can do it.
Right.
So it's all on me, which adds pressure and a whole bunch of other feelings on top of it. But then I finish it, or not even finish it. I'll send photos to people halfway through.
Progress. It makes you feel better because like you know that people are witnessing like how much you're putting into it, and it already looks nice. Like
Right.
and you're excited about the outcome. And I've seen you knock out like
waves.
within the past few days. She has been a beast. Like she went and painted a mural on a wall of a house, and then like she came home after hours of doing that, and she's like, I'm gonna paint. And so she's just painting like these portraits of dogs and grayscale, and it's beautiful. And like she has like multiple paintings that she's working on, and she'll balance between them all, and I'm just really impressed. I'm glad that it gives you an outlet. Like I'm glad that it makes you feel better, and that people can make you feel better because they appreciate it.
Yeah,
Like
Yes.
yeah.
So, when you work on your projects, are you doing like 12 hours straight? Are you kind of like a person that's kind of like when sometimes I edit a project I'm really into, I will not sleep and I'll just go 16 hours, 12 hours just because I'm so like into this project.
I have had days where I have had to sit in front of a canvas for 12 hours. I love sleep, so I'll get to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm honestly just messing this up at this point. And so I'll have to take a break. What I typically like to do is sit, lose track of time, paint for about 4 or 5 hours, and then realize where I'm at, and I need to get up and walk away. The thing about painting is if you get up and walk away from it, distance yourself from it, you actually see more, if that makes any sense. When you're so close to something, you're seeing all of the imperfections and all of the things that you need to fix in it only. And then you get up and you walk away and you stand at least 6 feet from it, because that's usually where people will stand when they're looking at something.
So symbolic.
Right.
And haha. And then it's like, oh wow, this looks pretty good. Awesome. And then I'll be able to go and get some water, or go for a run, or
You already feel good
Organize.
about what you did enough to where you can kind of like take a breather and then
work-life
reassess.
balance. You were
Work-life
talking about that.
balance.
Work-life balance.
Right. You were talking earlier about like signs that your parents maybe didn't see some of your things. Can you, going through it, do you see people that maybe have the signs of having some kind of mental health that you can kind of pick out that maybe they don't know?
That they don't know. I know a lot of people that are in therapy. Let me think. You don't want me to talk about this one, do you? Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to use a
Anonymous name? Okay, gotcha.
We'll say Mark.
Mark, okay.
So Mark is very aggressive all the time. You can tell that they are not very comfortable with themselves, and they project a lot of their feelings onto the people that are around them. And I know that all stems from, not feeling good about yourself, not feeling good in your head. And so just recognizing that if you're being treated unfairly or you're being treated badly, it might not be you, it might be them, because they haven't worked out things for their own personal lives. And I think a lot of that stems from not getting therapy. I think everyone can really benefit from getting therapy, because these negative feelings that you have, it doesn't mean that it's just in the moment. It doesn't mean that that's just who you are. It means the things that have accumulated throughout your life have built up in a way that you haven't broken it down to sort it into the different bins that you need in your head. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, like, you don't know what your childhood, how your childhood really affected you until you sit down and you think about, like, so my father was more neglectful than I'd say the general parent was, or like my mother was, maybe she was emotionally abusive. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you like, maybe you know she was kind of a B word, but like she,
you can say it on the show if you want.
Okay, all right. Maybe she was a bitch, but you know, it doesn't necessarily reflect anything on you. But the things that you go through, if you break it down, allow you to deconstruct other people and see, like, oh, that's because they had like trauma in their childhood and they weren't capable of love because they're stuck at a certain age, or they're depressed themselves and they feel unfulfilled in their life, and like everything is just like so connected.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like, because I people come to me with problems and it's like easy for me to decipher why they have these problems, but then when you have problems, it's hard for you to kind of see.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Wink, wink, wink.
Right.
Of course not.
There have been. Okay.
We're gonna call him.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Just don't say their real name, but obviously.
No, I'll be honest. Okay.
Yeah.
So I am in the middle of maybe getting a separation for my marriage, and so there are a lot of things. We are both manic bipolar depressive and have ADHD, so we got our own things going on. But there are enough similarities and differences that I try to deconstruct and try to see, like, as objectively as possible so that I can understand. But there have been relationships that I have witnessed outside of my own life through friends where, say, for instance, Mark treats someone badly, and I can see through everything that they're doing. I can witness, like, I can say, oh, they're projecting. Oh, they are, they're feeling bad about themselves, so they're putting that on you. And they are being defensive when really, like, they're not considering your feelings. They're just off in their own self-absorbed world. I can see all those traits in another person and in another situation, but in my situation, I give excuses. I give like, oh, well, their redeeming qualities are this though, so, or they had a bad childhood, so instead of like that being reasoning as to why they do the things they do, but it's basically excusing it. Like, you can deconstruct and identify as much as you want, and I feel like everybody has mental conditions, but you can break it down as much as you want, but the fact is you have to look at a person for their actions. So it doesn't matter, like, yes, I'm sorry that you have mental conditions, and everyone should be like aware of what's happening in their own mind and try to consider what's happening in other people's minds, because a lot of times it is a chemical imbalance, or it's trauma related, or things that they have to get through that they haven't worked through. But if they're not willing to work through it, and they're not willing to try to change and try to be a better person, because you can't excuse your actions on mental illness. It is a factor, but at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own actions.
All right. And you were talking about therapy earlier. What type of therapies are there for people? And then when did you, if you want to answer the question,
Sure. No, I'm fine. I'm an open book.
When did you first figure you had a problem, and when did you first go seek maybe medication or therapy? When did you?
Yeah. So I was a really sad kid for a long time. I'm sorry. I lived with her growing up, so like she's witnessed. But I'd say once I got to about 25 or 26, it got a lot harder because I was in the real world with I was trying to progress my career, and like the me I knew for a long time was no longer the me I could rely on, because, you know, I'd grown out of certain habits, and then I didn't know who I was anymore. So I felt like I was going to work every day and I was so depressed, but I kept going, knowing that I had to. So I was like, I need help. Like, I'm literally going to work every day and I'm crying on the way to work and on the way home from work. And I would cry and complain like all night about it, and it wasn't necessarily the job. It was just that like I was not happy. And so I decided at that time I should reach out to people. And while I do suggest getting help, please take the guidance that you get from government funded services with a grain of salt, because I had people that made me feel worse at that time when I tried to talk to them, because they aren't making very much money. So they made me feel worse because they were like, how much do you make? Oh, that much? Like, they basically made me feel like, oh, wow, like that's more than I make, so you shouldn't feel bad because you make money. Like, no, you can have money and still feel horrible about everything.
I went to, I think it was based on my income. It was what they would charge me when I decided.
Yes.
I think I was around the same age you were. I was probably 26, 27, kind of started really feeling like, well, this isn't getting better. Like, this is every winter I feel like this. This is, you know, I need to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yours is always very much seasonal.
It's when it gets when it gets cold.
Don't go to Alaska.
Well, I know. Yeah, I want to go to Alaska. Yeah. But it's just I think it has not to do with the cold. I think it has to do with the sunlight.
That's what I'm saying.
I was a night owl, so I really never would see the sun sometimes.
Yeah.
Like maybe for an hour or two a day.
Yeah.
And so I think that had something to do with it. But I'm not an expert, so I don't
know.
know.
100%. You're absolutely 100% right. That's what I mean is, like, in Alaska, they have like certain lanterns and things that you use to kind of like combat depression, because it's dark and cold all the time. Like, they have to have I don't remember how many hours of daylight they have, but for the most part it is once it gets to the dark periods, it's like all darkness. So it's either all light or all dark. So like that could be hard. Yeah. But
there's a documentary in northern Canada. There's like the suicide rate's really high, especially with young adults, because like you were saying, it's probably has to do with just the seclusion, the daylight, the cold.
Yeah. And I think also, like, if we're just talking about like winter in general, I mean, that's also around the holidays, and people have a lot of like mental anguish that they don't deal with, that pops up miraculously around the holidays, because you want to be close to people, and like our natural instinct is to connect with people. And I feel like we keep that from ourselves so often. We deprive ourselves of the connection that we actually need. And around the holidays, it just kind of like magnifies the fact that we haven't allowed ourselves to actually connect with people. And I've realized just recently, actually, like, people start reaching out, they start texting a little bit more, and they're like, oh, how are you doing? I was thinking about you, like, all around the holidays, because, and it's not about like, oh, I didn't tell them Merry Christmas. It was just like a obligatory thing. It was just that they like missed the connection. You start thinking about it like, it's dark, it's cold, I'm lonely, it's Christmas, I should be with someone. Like, yeah. So holidays are a big deal with like people with depression, like kind of amplifying it, for sure.
That also stems back to childhood traumas. You know, if you have a horrible family situation and this is a time where you spend around your family, then you are seeing other people sharing so many warm moments with their families, and you don't have that, and that's just another factor, you know.
Yeah. So, but going back to the therapy, so when you would go, is it type of therapy where you would just sit there and talk to them, or I mean, what's type of therapy that you've gone through? Or you, Ash, if you want to jump into.
Yeah, you want to go first.
I actually started, I saw a therapist right around the same time. I was like maybe 27 or 28, and I had the same issue. I was like, I'm not feeling okay, and I was dating someone at the time who was just not helping, and all we would do is eat food and go to sleep, and he was a very unemotional person, and
you're very not.
And I'm very not. I am emotions in a meat suit. And so I was just like, I need to do something, or else I am gonna do something. And I can't live like this anymore. So I started to see someone, and unfortunately that didn't really pan out for me. I went to a psychiatrist who was listening to what I was saying.
Psychologists, because they didn't prescribe medication.
I was
right?
prescribed medication.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I went to a psychiatrist, and what I experienced was that she didn't really hear anything I said. She only wanted to medicate me, which at that time, I didn't care what it was. I just wanted to be fixed. So
you wanted to feel better, so you were just taking any kind of advice.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, sure, give me medicine if that's going to make me not feel like I want to drive my car off of a bridge. Sure. And then, of course,
did you have any kind of adverse reactions to any of the medication? Like, were any of them bad? Because I remember, like, when I was like starting to get prescribed medication, some of it made me feel crazier. Like, I felt more emotional.
Definitely.
Like, okay.
Yeah,
I went through a
I had the same thing too. Like Zoloft, it also seemed like the doctors would always push like a certain type of med that like maybe they're getting some kickback. It felt like there was some kind of thing like, I was like, I tried that one before, it didn't work. But they're like, no,
just try it again.
You
probably didn't. You probably did something wrong.
Right.
Cool.
It was probably you.
Let's push more. Let's push more on me.
Right.
Great. Now I can't take medicine right. Honestly, I wasn't taking medicine right, but I did go through. I was still self-medicating when I was taking the prescribed medicine, and you don't drink alcohol when you're on medication. So I was still doing that, and it wasn't really helping.
Yeah.
It was making it worse. It would amplify the alcohol, and it would amplify my emotions when I would drink, and it turned into a absolute mess. And so that was my experience with therapy, and I would recommend finding someone that you could talk to that you feel like is hearing what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not like taking in the information and writing down who knows what she was writing down, because she wasn't even listening to what I was saying.
She was picking up on keywords and then prescribing you something.
Yeah. She didn't even and I'm sure she had a lot of other patients or whatever.
But every patient should be important. I feel like you have to find the right therapist, because the right therapist for you would take the time to know that you were different.
Right.
Yeah.
She didn't even, she told me I was from the wrong state. She was like, when you were growing up in this place, and I was like, well, actually, that's not where I'm from, but okay.
Thanks for listening.
This medicine is not working out for me right now, doc.
Right.
And so, you know, I was like, okay, here's this new medicine. And then as time went on, and I was like feeling okay, I obviously just started going to see her because she was giving me medicine and I needed her prescription. And so I started to put even less care into talking to her. But the first session I had with her, I could barely talk because I was just crying so bad because that's where I was at in my emotional state.
You were being raw though, in that moment. Like, I'm glad that you did that, and I did the same thing, but I wonder because we've never talked about this. I wonder, like, was there ever a time when you felt like you were just telling them what you thought you had to tell them in order to get your prescription or to move the session along?
I know I felt that way.
Yeah.
I was not disclosing information that was pertinent to the situation because I didn't want to delve into it.
Okay.
So I kind of, sort of, slightly.
So, because I remember, so my experience was, you know, I had the bad experience with the lady that was like, well, you make too much money, you shouldn't be sad. And then going into like
money solves anything, really.
Exactly.
It helps some things. It can ease things.
You
It makes
can
things
less
easier.
hungry.
You can have more
Right.
things,
You can-
but it,
Yeah.
I mean, it
Is that-
doesn't help with how much you hate yourself. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can get a makeover, but you can still point out the tiny flaws after having a makeover or feel like it doesn't suit how you feel. You know, money doesn't help. But, so my experience was I went through that, and then like I found a real doctor's office, and like they mandated that I have both a psychiatrist or a psychologist and also a medication management doctor, so to speak. They never give me a real name for that, but they do medication management.
What was the difference?
So it was someone who was listening to you and listening to your emotions and your day-to-day life and everything. And then the medication side of things was to see, okay, so how are the meds doing? Like, are you taking them with this? Are you still drinking? Are you like, what, you know, are you eating with your medication so that it's actually absorbing into your system? Or like, are you just going through the routine and so you're taking the medication because you know that you're supposed to, or is it actually working for you? You know, so like two people that both have eyes on you to babysit you essentially, but the psychologist being the one who actually like helped you out with your emotions, and the other person more in charge of, you know, making sure that you're not abusing medication and that you have the right one prescribed. So it took a long time to find the right medication for me. Like I said, I started out on, I think it was Latuda. Wait, not Latuda. No, Latuta's good. Lexapro. That's what it was.
I had that.
Yeah. And it made me feel crazy. Like, I got into more fights with my husband. I was like bursting into tears and like screaming at him and like, and I didn't understand why. I could see myself in the moment. Like, what am I doing? Like, this is not me. Like, why am I even upset right now? Why do I feel this intense emotionally? Like, I couldn't explain it. And it was all because I was on the wrong medication. And it took a while to find the right medication, but I'm pretty level now, I think.
Did it make you, because I think what it did to me, I would bottle a lot of shit and then bam, snap it. It would
Yes.
make
That's
me.
what I do in real life without medication.
Oh,
Right.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But for me, I usually don't do that. I'm pretty chill, but I don't really get to that. But it made me like that, and it also made my brain cloudy. Like, it was hard for me to kind of be creative and think creatively. Like, it was doing that to me.
I was on a mood stabilizer, and I felt
Do you
like
remember what it was? Not that it's important.
Started
You can
with
go
an
on
A, I think.
I'll think about it.
But Afrin, is that one? I don't know. Well, this was...
You're correct.
I went through a mental breakdown and ended up quitting everything I was on at one time, and just cold turkey, just quit, because I was like, Ashley, you're not okay right now, and I don't even know where to start, because I couldn't stop drinking, I couldn't stop smoking weed, and I couldn't stop taking this medication because I thought it was
helping. You thought it was helping, yeah.
right. And
but you're not taking it anymore, right?
No, I'm not on anything anymore.
Right.
Well, I smoke some weed occasionally, but I don't drink anymore. 1 year clean. Woo, woo, woo.
Oh, hey. There you go. Yeah. So what? The for the audience, when was your kind of that breakdown point? How old were you when you said fuck everything? And then when you said you quit everything, you're talking the alcohol, smoking, and the pills. But did you quit like your job? Did you quit?
I did not quit my job.
Oh, okay. So
no, I just quit all the vices. I quit all of the chemical things that I was putting into my body that were altering my mind. And man, maybe I was like 29.
Okay, so this is
28.
Just maybe three and a half years ago.
Did you think at all that like turning 30 or like leading up to turning 30 gave you kind of any impression of like, I should have my shit together by like...
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. I felt that as I was in my late 20s. I was like, okay, Ashley, this is not where you thought you would be right now. I thought I would be like, married with kids or something, or in a solid career. But little did I know, deciding on art was like, I might as well have just bent over and took a lashing, because being an artist is never going to be stable or
but people need you. Like, I am not like, I like to sing, but other than that, like, I'm not really a creative type. Don't tell mom. But you are, and like I see the things that you do, and I think like no one else can do that. Like that, so like it sucks that you have to go through all of that by yourself, like, and kind of deal with the like, do I have security? Do I do I work myself to the bone every day in order to make a living? Or, do I just deal with the fact that like, maybe I won't like always be rolling in it. Sometimes I will, but just having that satisfaction that you're the only one that can do that, and that your creativity means something to other people. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Aww. Oh.
Yeah.
I should have brought some tissues.
Yeah. I should have some down here somewhere. Yeah. So when you quit all that stuff, kind of like, how long did it take you before you felt like totally different or on a different chapter, different lane?
Oh, okay. So quitting was it has been a process.
Yeah.
So I quit everything, and then I started drinking again. But I quit the medication, and I never went back to the medication, because it made me feel like a hollow shell of myself. I couldn't. There was nothing that felt real or normal or like anything. So I started it thinking that it would that it would fix the sadness or the emptiness that I was feeling.
Because you were kind of told that it would help, so you assumed, what are the negative things about my life? It's going to fix that. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Psych.
So, but you were saying earlier about your drinking that you just don't drink hard liquor anymore. I'm the same way. Like that, when I had my issues, it was from the hard liquor stuff, and then with beer, I mean, it's not a good thing, but at least I can kind of pace it out.
Right.
And then I almost got to the point where drinking hard liquor would hurt my stomach, that I can't even do it anymore. Even if I wanted to take a shot, I can't.
Your body's not used to it anymore.
Well, that, and it's just maybe my brain's telling my stomach,
don't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
It just tears at my stomach. So I can't even drink hard liquor anymore if I wanted to.
I was getting up in the morning, and I would take shots of vodka, multiple shots of vodka all day until I went to bed. So that was my life. I would go through a full like half gallon of vodka in one day with my husband. And it wasn't until he had kidney and liver failure and had to go to the ICU that we stopped anything. And out of solidarity, I quit. So it's easier to quit something or do something good for yourself if you're doing it actually for someone else, turns out. So I decided once I was like, I don't want to just completely cut out alcohol out of my life because I still like to have a little bit of fun. So I decided I was just going to have either wine or beer. It's less alcohol percentage and it's better for you. Even wine now, like it's 12% versus 5% beers. So the beers, I don't even feel anything. It's almost like I'm just like, I'm drinking for the sake of drinking, which is ridiculous. But now
when you started with the to go back on that real quick, you get up in the morning and start drinking vodka. Was it because you first started because you had a hangover, and the best way back in the day when in my 20s, the best way to get rid of a hangover just have a beer in the morning? Usually that would.
I never gave I gave myself a chance to find out.
Oh, okay.
So no. So there were times when there would be like a little bit of lapse there where I was like, hair of the dog,
Yeah.
But for the most part, like I was just like, I'm awake, I must be drinking, and it became routine. I think just like with smokers, like it's like sorry, I'm not a smoker, so if I'm saying something that's not true, please correct me. But I feel like it's the same in the sense of like, it's a social thing, it's a routine thing. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the chemical or the substance that you're putting into your body so much as like, I've established this routine, so I'm going to stick to it. I'm committed.
What was that called the time sunk fallacy?
The sunken time fallacy. I'm going to say it wrong, but anyway, there's something along those lines, sunken time fallacy, where it's like you've already put in so much. I'm going to look into it while I'm speaking.
Yeah.
So, but basically, you have already put so much into a certain idea that you don't want to give it up, even if you know that it's not good for you. So, like, say, for instance, you're watching a show or a movie, and the show gets boring, it gets stale, they use the same plot lines over and over again, or the movie just gets stale, and like you want to turn it off, but at the same time you're like, I kind of want to finish it because I'm already this far into the movie, I might as well finish it. Or like, I have just one more season, how bad could it be, I'll just go through it, but it's not good for you, and just sticking with
businesses do it all the time. I've done that with shows that I knew that like, this isn't going to go anywhere anymore, but I'm like, well, I might as well just keep going.
Yep, exactly.
Keep doing it.
Exactly.
Even though it's a torture on like the stress and everything else. Yeah.
But that doesn't really give any kind of merit to the thing that you're, sticking it out for. And why are you sticking it out for? Like, really? I know. Shut up.
I ever know what she was going to say. Yeah.
But yes, it is called the sunk cost fallacy. And it says,
that's what it is. Yes.
it describes our tendency to follow through on an endeavor if we have already invested time, effort, or money into it, whether or not the current cost outweighs the benefits. Are you saying that that's why I drank?
I mean, you develop the routine,
Right.
I'm already in this routine. This is already what I'm doing. I guess I'm
Yeah.
going to keep doing it kind of thing.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Like, who am I without this routine?
Yeah. And you know what? It's so sad to say, but you know what? Here I am on full display. But like, as my marriage is ending, we had good times while we were drinking. I'm not going to deny that. Like,
I've had so many good times.
A fantastic time.
Wow.
Yeah,
Let me tell you.
like we would get into like inflatable ball, like big this was during the pandemic, so like we entertained ourselves. Like we had big inflatable balls that we would like get in and then like bounce into each other, and like we played darts, we played Wii Sports, we played like VR games, we like joked a lot. We played a game where you over enunciate the P's, like the P sound in words, and so like you would use a lot of words with P, but like
example for me, let me hear.
So like you put water in your mouth and you say Point Pleasant Police Department, and like in front of somebody, and like you're just spitting water all over them. We did that game. It was so much fucking fun, but like it's ridiculous. Like that we had so much fun together, but we were drunk off our ass all the time. So like you're not dealing with your actual emotions. You're just like living for the vice.
The laughs.
Now,
yeah, and it just isn't real.
Chasing a laugh.
Yeah.
Now during the pandemic, for both of you, I'll let Ashley go first. Because I had that definitely did not help the lockdown of not being able to do anything. I thought like, oh my god, I got to go home from work and get paid. I'm gonna do all kinds of productive stuff at home. But no, I sat and we drank. I drank every day, watching Netflix, watching Tiger King, and did nothing productive. But like, and did that like affect you guys? The kind of the pandemic.
Honestly, I was so worried going into the pandemic because I had just quit tattooing, which was my my money maker. I was doing a similar thing. I was crying myself to work every day because I was so unhappy. I was drinking myself to death because I was just like numbing how unhappy I was. So I had already quit that, and I was relying on painting as my means. And I have a friend that would pay me to, do random things like walk his dog or do his laundry or pretty much be his personal assistant.
Yeah.
So he kept me afloat, and I was so stressed about people not wanting to spend money on paintings because that was my job.
Yeah.
But honestly, I made more money than I ever had. And I sat and I painted and I dog walked and I got it was honestly, I hate saying this because it was so devastating to so many people, but it got me on the right path. I was able to stay out of bars and away from, vices and just seriously focus on what made me the happiest and like focus on myself, and there were times throughout it where I wasn't completely sober at that time. I had not given up alcohol. I had tried to, and then I would do the thing where you don't drink liquor, just drink beer and
You're
wine.
just giving yourself limitations instead of actually cutting it out. Yeah.
But that never works for me because I am the type of person that if I know my limit, but I ignore it. And if I'm having a good time and
you excuse it anyway and you do it anyway. Yeah.
I'm having a good time and I reach my limit, I'm not going to tell myself no. I'm going to just drink another shot or, and then that snowballs to where it's like, okay, well, I know this is my rule, but I don't care anymore.
Right.
So
for tonight, it's going to be okay because this is just where we're at. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like, oh, go ahead.
No, you can go. What? Me?
You.
I kind of feel like the pandemic it ruined and is saving my life because it's all about your mentality because on the one hand, like I was going into office before the pandemic and like I worked at a regular 9 to 5 job or 8 to 5 job and I felt like my life was really organized for the first time. I felt like things were going right for the first time in a long time, but I kind of was like I was still kind of delusional because I wasn't facing problems that were underlying because there was so much positivity like iced on top that I wasn't getting to any of the root of my issues.
Right.
So once the pandemic hit, I was trapped in a house with my husband 24 hours a day, which at first was great because we were drunk all the time. But
playing the pee game. Yeah.
Yeah, the pee game.
Yeah, the
Where
pee
you get
game.
drunk and you pee on each other.
That's a different game. But
Whole other set of rules there.
That's a whole different podcast. But
yeah. Involves different accoutrement.
Yeah.
Tarps and stuff.
Definitely tarps. You need that. So we were doing fine until he had to go into the hospital and all of that, and then like life just completely changed because I realized that once. Like, we were always drinking even before the pandemic. It just got worse during the pandemic. So we had to magnify, like, everything that we were staring right at the entire time and not actually focusing on. And so we had to get to a point where we were like, okay, this is just something we can't do for our lives anymore. Now what does our life look like? And so for two people that did have mental illness, and like very similar ones, so we butt heads a lot because like we both get manic, we both get depressed, and like it's really hard to be happy around someone that's depressed. You can try to pull them out of it, but it's like it's not really in their control, so you can't be mad at them for it.
Right. Do you feed off other people's energies?
Oh, I am definitely an empath. Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Because I'm the same way. If somebody's real stressed out,
yes,
I'm all of a sudden I can feel it. I can.
Inside, it's like,
yeah,
like crippling, and you just can't breathe.
Right.
It's been a fight because I try to be as logical as possible. I'm like kicking everything.
That's all right.
I try to be as logical as possible, and I can hear the rationalization when my husband says, I'm mad at the situation, I'm upset, I'm depressed, I'm feeling this way, it has nothing to do with you. And I'm like, I hear what you're saying, I'm absorbing everything. Like, and so you can't help if you're an empath and like someone is being like they have a dark cloud over them, you can't help but to absorb that. And like you want to make it better, but it has nothing to do with you, so you can't make it better. That is like, you have to understand that about mental illness is like that is on them. Like that is their struggle, and I know that you care about them and I know that you want to help them, but it's up to them to help themselves. You can encourage them along the way, and you can support them, and you can say like, I understand what you're going through. I'm here for you. I'll give you a hug. I'll like support you, but you can't change anything for them. They have to change it for themselves. And,
right. I've known so many people that had addiction problems, and like you can't do anything. They have to do it themselves. I mean, you can try to help them. I mean, but
you can offer them a lifeline.
Right.
Throw them a life vest.
Right, but but for them to really change, it's on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And okay, so to wrap that up, sorry, I'm monopolizing the situation.
No, you're fine.
But the good the pandemic has brought is like, I realized like I can't just take his word over. I respect his word over my own, which is bad. But he's very worried about the pandemic, and I finally got to a point where I was like, I'm going to be as safe as possible. I'm going to get all my shots. I'm going to get the booster. I'm going to wear a mask. I'm going to do all the things. But at the same time, like, I can't stop living my life because I've done that for the past couple of years. And all it's done is, like, continue to make me grab on devices that were not what I wanted and, like, continue to drown myself in my own, like, mental illness and not like fix anything, and not like I guess I retreated back to that school mentality of like, I'm just gonna isolate myself, and I'm not gonna go out and socialize with people. I'm not gonna go out and try to find new activities because I couldn't. I felt like I couldn't, and it was through that thinking that, and stopping drinking, that I was able to see the flaws that are in the relationship and like in myself. And I'm able to see like, maybe you need to do things a little bit differently, but do them for you, like not for somebody else. And so I thank you, pandemic, for showing me the error of my ways, for first amplifying them and then showing me that that was the worst thing that I could have possibly done. And now, like, I need to fix my life. So,
yeah, what it did for me is after a while, like, well, if this world's going to end, I better do something. Do something productive with my life before it does. That's why I said to myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What were your, like,
Sure.
when you thought that, like, what were your feelings of, like, what did you want to do when you were like, I'm wasting my life now? Like, what were the first things that you thought of? They were like, I have to do this. Like, I have to do this.
I wasn't creating anything and putting anything out in the world, and so I came to the conclusion of doing this podcast, this show, and so I built this so I could do this every day, so I could kind of put something out into the world. So it's been like a blessing. Like it's even if nobody's listening, it doesn't matter. I'm sure there's hi mom. I'm sure she's
Hi, Mom.
yeah, but
Hi, Mom.
but seriously, it's just to be able to. It's like I said, it's almost like a drug for me to be able to put content out every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah.
We choose
Well-
our vices, and hopefully we choose ones that are good for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, congrats.
Oh well, thanks. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, this was
Yes.
great having you guys.
Thank
and
you.
we've went over an hour. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
Wow.
Oops.
Yeah. So, anything else we kind of want to? We can do this. We should have this again next month. I
like-
think.
yeah.
Yeah. I think there's still a
Oh,
lot.
you can come back.
She's trying to get me to move here because my marriage is ending. And,
Oh, you don't live in St. Louis?
I live
She's
in
from
Charlotte.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Maybe
I'd love to do like a remote thing, but ideally I'll probably move here. We'll see. So,
Oh, there we go.
yeah.
Okay. Well, so for the people listening out there, like, what's kind of your advice to people dealing with mental health? Like, what would their first step be?
Think about where you want to go with your life and be really open-minded to hearing things that you're not gonna want to hear. Like when you go into therapy, it's gonna be a wild ride because you have to find the right therapist, you have to find the right medication if that's for you, but just keep an open mind and just realize like it's about the end goal. You want to feel whole, you want to feel like you've resolved the things in your past that have prevented you from actually being like a full, complete person. And a lot of the struggles that you have are probably rooted in things that you've already been through. So just realize it's going to take some time and don't feel bad about actually trying to reach out for help, because to me, it was the best thing that could have happened to me, because if I have someone who can objectively look at what I've been through and tell me, like, it's okay, this is probably why you were feeling what you were feeling and why it relates to your life now, and here's what you can do to help. That was really helpful to me, and the medication definitely leveled me out. So it does work if you have medication and or therapy. You just have to not feed into that stigma of like, oh, people think you're crazy if you have to go to therapy. Okay, we're all fucking crazy. Yeah, we are.
Crazy. I know I'm crazy.
One of my suggestions is like when I had my problem, like I would reach out to like a friend at first, right? But if your friend doesn't understand what you're going through, they're not going to be there to really give you the right advice. So it really didn't help me until I talked to a therapist or a stranger, somebody that,
No bias.
no bias.
Exactly.
And I have great friends, but some people don't have the same struggles as yourself. So,
Right.
So they might not see and know what you're really going through.
Ooh, I will say, this might just be a me thing, but I don't think it's just a me thing. Find a therapist that is like you. I know it sounds a certain way.
Like
but,
you how?
But like the same sex, the same
Okay.
like religion or things like that. You need someone that sees you as like someone they can relate to, because like if you don't, then you're just going to be like another like piece of paper with some details on it that they're not connecting with, and you need to feel connected to your therapist.
That's actually a very, very solid advice.
Yeah.
And you are not like bound to the first therapist that you see. I guarantee you that won't be the last therapist you see. If you are very like persistent about trying to find the right thing for you to make you feel better, you're going to go through a few therapists. And don't feel bad about saying, I don't think this is a good fit, because it's about finding the right fit. And they have plenty of people all the time that say that they're not a right fit. It's not their job to be a right fit for you. It's just their job to try to understand you. And if they're not a right fit for you, they're not going to understand you. So you have to find someone else.
For me, it was easier talking to a little different female, because when I talked to a male, I almost felt kind of goofy that I had problems.
That masculinity, that machismo.
Yeah,
right.
so that's just me though. So
no, it depends.
Yeah,
it depends
so.
Because like for me, it was like I needed a female's perspective, but I could definitely see like some females feeling like they were like intimidated by the other female. I felt that a little bit in some instances. Like I'm thinking like, oh, they must have their life together, and they must like, you know, they're a better woman than I am because they do all these things, and like they're like comfortable with what they're doing, and they're like doing well in their job and all of these things, and like it's easy to feel like judged, I guess, or like to someone who's an alcoholic like I am / was, then someone that doesn't drink, like it's easy to feel like they're judging you, you know, but just whatever feels right, just go with it, and don't question yourself if you think it feels wrong. Just skip it. Just go on, find someone else.
Right. And what's your?
My advice would be kind to yourself, because no one else is going to be as kind to you as you can be to you.
Right.
Because no one else is inside of yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Take your mental health seriously.
Yeah.
You know, like it's one of the most simple things and the most important self-care things that you can do, because everything stems from like your mental health. That's
right.
where everything stems from.
And the reason I went to the podcast today is amazing to me that really mental health really hasn't been talked about. And if you look 10 years ago, I don't think it's just more in recent years.
You watch Sopranos, and that's based on therapy.
Yeah.
And he was criticized by almost everyone that he talked to at one point or another. Even Carmela criticized him about his therapist. And
in what way? I didn't watch Sopranos.
I mean, hers was like, she's a woman. You know, you're probably banging her.
Oh, okay, I see.
But yeah, it was harshly criticized for sure. Like, you're not a man if you have to go talk to somebody about your feelings.
Yeah, it really wasn't. It seemed like it got much attention talked about back then. Because,
it's a stigma. Like, you're crazy.
Right.
You're crazy. Something's wrong with you.
Yeah,
like, really,
you almost feel ashamed. Like, oh, yeah.
I will say, I don't care how you feel about yourself. Every single person on the planet would benefit from therapy in some way if they had the right therapist. That's just my opinion. Like, because I don't care if you feel really good about yourself, maybe you're not good at like deconstructing someone else's mindset and like understanding your connection with them. They can help with personal relationships too, and just like how you interact with people. And like, it doesn't mean that there has to be something wrong with you. You don't have to have a mental illness in order to seek out help and to have guidance.
That's true.
Yeah. Wow, very powerful.
That was good. Well, maybe we should end the podcast on that one right there. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it was great. This was one of my best podcasts. I'm very proud of this podcast.
Thank you.
I'm very proud
I
of
really
this.
enjoyed it. Yeah.
I think this was great for anybody watching. Just what we talked about. So definitely next month.
I'm in.
Okay.
For sure.
I mean,
It's gonna happen. It's
okay.
gonna happen.
I know that with what happened to your situation, we don't want to get into it, but if you want to do this once a month from my house, I'm giving you that offer.
Oh, Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
So we'll talk about that in this
Okay.
podcast. But I just think it's very important, and so that's like giving back. So this whole thing of doing the network Arch United is I always try to give back. So I think this is an important thing for people. So, anyways, thank you guys so much coming
Thank
out.
you
And
so much.
We'll see you guys. You can definitely subscribe to the Daily Dirt with Dustin Diggs and like the Arch United Network on Facebook. And we will see you tomorrow.
Woohoo.
We're out.